Sigmar, I would love your input on this. This is how I've been describing meditation. So I believe that the conscious field, what we call our mind, is non-local. It exists held in the brain, but it's bigger than our brain. And it can go to the past and it can go to the future. And sometimes, if we're in the present, we can hold it where our feet are. I think the body and the fascia itself is a bioemotion intelligence. I think that it has its own awareness, and I think that it's constantly dialoguing with tension back to our conscious brain. And when we have a good open communication, we listen to the body, we give it what it needs, it stays happy, healthy, and clear. It stays tuned. So when we meditate, I think any time that we hold our conscious brain where our feet are, we're meditating, which means every time we eat, if we're focused on the flavors, the experience of the textures, how we feel in that given moment, we're meditating. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. You totally nailed it. The here and now is really where we want to be, because this is not only the state of meditation, this should actually be the state of our life. And it's very, very hard because what we constantly do is we go either in the past, what, creates depression, or we go in the future and this, causes anxiety. So and there's a funny thing, what I always refer to is Timothy Leary. He said when surfing was not that of a mainstream sport, when it had been the black sheeps of society in the 60s, he said the only person in society right now that really understands the here and now is the surfer, because the wave behind him is already gone and in front of him doesn't exist. So he's really in the here and now. And that's a very simple analogy when you bring this into your life, because what is in the past will never come back, and you don't know the future. We don't know it. So our life happens really in the here and now. And the only thing that can bring us there is a conscious living form, a conscious, thought process that has this hygiene, what I'm talking about. And it's like, we all call it mindfulness, but actually it's called mind emptiness. So the point where we're not firing the 75,000 thoughts that we're doing, like really coming into life, like listening to your heart, listening to your breath, going through your body, and also learning how to sit with the stillness and get the power out of the silence. Because in the silence, this is where the actual power is. But if we are so overloaded by all the stuff that's going on in our daily life, for us, silence is the most uncomfortable thing, and this is why people distract them constantly with either this one here, or they watch nonsense TV shows or whatever. I mean, I watch TV on and off too, but I learned that this is just like a distraction,
Let's pause there for a moment, Sigmar. I like what you're highlighting a lot. And I think that a ton of people are struggling with their attention span. So meditation is like overwhelming to them because they're constantly distracting themselves. Yeah. So I have a few tips that I would like to recommend. If you just listen to Sigmar and you're like, oh shit, here's something to try. And Sigmar, I'd love for you to add a couple things to it. If you're struggling with your conscious awareness and being present, you feel like you're constantly going, try to remove your phone for one whole day a week. I practice no phone Sundays. I put it away. I put it in the drawer. And I just let myself be where I am. Having at least one day a week where you completely don't have it around you will show you your codependency on it. And we can all organize a day where we don't quite need it. And we can use that state as a state of rest, a state of being just where you are, not distracted by everybody else. The second thing I would recommend is when you wake up, don't turn your phone on for a couple hours, and instead use your morning time to read, to journal, and to be with yourself. Work on your body. Invest in yourself before you give away your awareness and attention to everything else around you. First, just collect what you are. And if you can wake up and read for 20 minutes, this is what sharpens our ability to stay aware, to stay attentive. Reading is one of the single best things that we can do to combat all of the short form, all of the Instagram, all of this moving of information too fast. Fixate on something, fall in love with something, read a romance novel, read something scientific and nerdy. Let your brain take a walk through someone else's philosophy very slowly. And let your imagination build these mountains in our minds without AI. Is there something that you would add to that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. And I think you nail it completely because you tell people really how to do it and to achieve this. What I would like to say is the most important thing is when you do all these steps, you start looking on the outside, you stop looking on the outside and you go inwards. And this is like the key in life. It's all about self-empowerment. And when you look on the outside, Carl Jung, this is not what I said. Carl Jung said this a long time ago. When you look on the outside, you become a dreamer. When you go inward, you awaken. And this is exactly what people need to do. It's really a trust. You need to trust yourself. And this comes down to making your decision, sticking with your decision. And no matter if they're right or wrong, but you just need to do it. And these insecurities that we all have, they will vanish away, because you get self-empowered by wrong or right decisions. It doesn't matter. Make your decision. And the most important thing is you can only make the best decisions when you learn how to calm your mind and go into your heartfelt. And this is exactly where life should happen. And no matter which modality you use, I mean, yes, love tune is one thing, but you described so many other things to achieve this state of no mind. And I think this is what people should do to really understand, to become powerful, to become self-empowered.
Yeah. You mentioned things about choice there that I want to open up a little bit. When you make a decision, right? Because I would say, I think intuition is the body's signal that it knows something. That's why I think intuition arises from the intelligence within the body. And then our mind has to catch up to it. And we can choose to listen to it, suppress it, numb it, push it away. It's like a whisper. It's like some people feel it in their gut. Some people feel it in their heart. Some people feel it in the high heart. I think it depends on how deeply they breathe, how fluid the fascia is, because the water within us is bound water. It's H3O2, other than the water that we pee out. And H3O2 responds to changes in electromagnetic fields. So I think the emotions, these words that we have, sadness, anger, grief, happiness, butterflies in my stomach, the heaviness of losing love, all of these emotions that we describe with texture, with weight, with a lightness, I think that we're describing our magnetic changes. And the water within us helps us feel it. So as we detox, as we sauna, as we replace that water with good spring water, we become more receptive because the water quality within us is alive and it's awake. And if someone is drinking a lot of alcohol, drinking a lot of soda, not sweating because they're in AC all the time, and they start to get disconnected from this intuition, and it just kind of, it shallows out. It might just be kind of like a high throat feeling, or like something doesn't kind of sit well. But then as we purge, as we open, the body becomes more responsive. How do you feel about how you make choice?
I mean, there's no, like unhealthy body with a healthy mind or healthy spirit. So the body's your temple. And when people look like for spiritual guidance, or what you also said earlier, like the belief in people that channel. I mean, first of all, everybody can channel because channeling is just the highest form of intuition. And those people just practices. Everybody can do it. But it only works with a really clean temple. And if you expose yourself or consume low frequency food, alcohol, even whatever, conversations, no matter what you do, you cannot miraculously change your temple and do meditation and keep on living in this low frequency state of mind. And your body is literally the vessel that you need to accelerate and vibrate higher. So clean food, moving, dancing. And dancing is one of the coolest forms for people to to shake out the chakras, breathing, like just being happy, doing stupid stuff, being goofy. this is really what it is, but you need to move. This is like, we are not meant to sit down all day long. It's bad enough how our society forces us to sit at a table and look at a screen. But if you know all this, then you need to be counterproductive when you have your free time. Like, really do all the stuff, move everything, sweat every day, go to the sauna. I do ice baths. I mean, there's so many stuff that you can do. And, you don't have to start on an extreme level, but just get moving. And if you move, everything gets into flow. And energy flows, and this is the same thing with your intention that you have. And the real spiritual experience can only happen when you take care about yourself. And this is an easy beginning for everybody. And that's actually a very spiritual move to start, cleaning out your own temple.
I can tell that you've fallen in love with purity. You're seeking another high, but it's like, come on, guys, this other high is very fun. For me, it's green tea and fasting. I started to develop a new relationship to how much I could perceive when I stopped eating heavy in the morning. So I do my breath work, go to the gym, and then giving myself emptiness with green tea. And now green tea is like a ritualistic meditating tool for like most of the East because it is so high vibration and cultivated at certain times. And just by drinking the water, like green tea, in the beginning, I used to get sick. It was like so alkaline to my system, such a different vibe than the cold brew coffee with milk that my body had to kind of calibrate to the sense of purity. And it was uncomfortable in the beginning. And I think, Sigmar, that the story that I want to weave with you here is that in the beginning, our relationship to purity is uncomfortable. Actually sometimes comes with like something that feels like a sickness, because to open up the detox pathways again, like, it doesn't matter where you start, the sauna, making sound, humming, breath work, cold plunging, detoxing, we're opening up the body's ability to let go of things, and then it's starting to receive better. So if you're taking minerals but you're not sweating, you're just adding something to the body without removing something. So if we think of the cell as something round, right, and it feels stuck and stiff, if we add more to it, we're just going to feel bloated. So many of us want to start our health chapter. Like if you're watching this and you're 100 pounds overweight and you really want to lose the weight, but your body feels full of friction, start with the sauna and start with looking at the fluids you're putting in your body. And I would highly recommend, it's free now. There's a book called The Mucusless Diet by Arnold Ehret. It's got some religious undertones, and if you ignore it, it's a very protocol, step-by-step way to open up your detox pathways by including a salad and by intermittent fasting, by developing a more simple relationship to letting things out of our body and ingesting things that are high quality. And that includes sound, Sigmar. And this level of purity, you get to a certain point where you're like, wow, the music is like makes me feel a little weird. It's like very sexual, or it's very like, there's a lot of drugs in this song. So you start to crave more pure tones. And crystal bowls are something that I think a lot of people gravitate to because it's our first time we're with this droning, pure frequency that's unadulterated. And then lo and behold, you made basically one for our pocket.
Yeah.